Will Smith, the face of the modern blockbuster, has carried many lives on his shoulders. He was the fearless fighter pilot who saved Earth in Independence Day. He became the sharpsuited protector of the planet in Men in Black, and he brought audiences to tears as the desperate but determined father in the Pursuit of Happyness, with unmatched charisma, energy that seemed to leap off the screen, and a gift for shifting seamlessly between laughter and heartbreak. Smith rose into that rare circle of Hollywood's most bankable and admired stars. For years, he stood like a cultural landmark, proof of what talent, self-belief, and relentless determination could build. From a West Philadelphia teenager chasing rhymes to a global superstar known across continents, his story seemed like a fairy tale. Yet the brilliance of his legacy hides shadows, betrayal, regret, and old wounds that fame never managed to erase. The smile dazzled millions, but behind it lived a weight that could not be seen. His journey is filled with dazzling triumphs, but also marred by storms that beg a hard question. Can Hollywood's brightest light survive its own darkness? Willard Carroll Smith, Jr. was born September 25, 1968, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was the second of 4 children, older sister Pamela, and younger twin siblings Harry and Ellen. His father, Willard Smith Sr., worked as a refrigeration engineer, coming home every night with the scent of oil and machinery on his clothes. His mother, Carolyn Bright, served as a school administrator, firm yet nurturing, a believer in education and discipline through patience. On paper, they were a stable, middle-class family in the Winfield neighborhood. But stability on the outside doesn't erase turmoil within. Will's father was respected but also feared, demanding, forceful, and at times explosive. His mother embodied a calmer discipline. The marriage sat on a hidden fault line. At just 9 years old, Will witnessed an eruption. His father struck his mother. Frozen in fear, he did nothing. That moment scarred him deeply. In his memoir, he wrote that he carried shame for decades, labeling himself a coward. The man he admired as a father became the man who broke his trust. The Smiths were not poor, and the neighborhood was considered safe compared to many parts of Philadelphia. But financial comfort never erased fear. Not poor, but never safe. That's how Will would later describe it. To cope, he turned to humor. He discovered that if he could make people laugh, maybe he could diffuse the tension in the room. Laughter became his armor, performance his shield. The radiant smile that would later charm the world began as protection. By his teenage years, the fractures at home widened. His parents separated, and though their divorce wasn't finalized until 2000, when Will was already famous, the split shaped his early life. He lived with his mother, who never remarried. He would later confess, "Everything I've built, everything I've done, comes from trying to protect my mother." Behind every success stood that 9-year-old boy, still trying to rewrite a memory that haunted him. In the mid-1980s, Will channeled his humor and rhythm into music, partnering with his friend Jeffrey Towns, better known as DJ Jazzy Jeff. As DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, they created playful, family-friendly rap that parents didn't fear and kids adored. Their songs filled living rooms far from the city streets. At only 20 years old, Will was living the dream, but critics sneered. Hardcore rappers dismissed him as soft. Others labeled him too commercial. The sting grew sharper in 1989 when Will and Jeff won the very first Grammy for Best Rap Performance with Parents Just Don't Understand. It should have been a historic victory. Instead, the night was tainted. The Recording Academy refused to televise the rap category, and many of the genre's biggest names boycotted. Will accepted the award, smiling as always, but inside he felt invisible. The respect he craved wasn't there. Money rolled in, and with it came temptation. By 21, he was rich beyond anything he had known: cars, jewelry, parties. But money without discipline is a trap, and the IRS came knocking. By the early 1990s, he owed millions in back taxes. The fortune was gone. The calls changed. The young Grammy winner was suddenly broke. "I had a hit record, a Grammy, and then I was broke." Flat broke, he admitted later. It was a brutal fall, but also his first real lesson. Success means nothing without control. Then, destiny knocked. In 1990, Will attended a party thrown by Quincy Jones. In the middle of the celebration, Quincy demanded that Will audition for a new sitcom right there in the living room. Will hesitated, unprepared, but Quincy pressed him. "Do it now." So he did. In a few minutes, the room knew. Will Smith had just landed the role of a lifetime. The show was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Overnight, the broke rapper became the star of one of television's defining series. It wasn't just a new chapter. It was resurrection. The 1990s propelled him into superstardom. Bad Boys lit the fuse. Independence Day turned him into humanity's savior. Men in Black cemented him as a global cultural icon. To the world, he seemed untouchable, funny, fearless, the perfect Hollywood hero. But fame came with a hidden cage. The public demanded that he always be charming, flawless, upbeat. Critics began to dismiss him as too polished, too artificial. Will later admitted, "I felt like no matter what I did, people only saw the image, not the person." To be invisible while everyone is watching, that was its own kind of prison. To break free of that image, he pursued roles that demanded more. Alley, 2001, nearly destroyed him physically and emotionally. He trained endlessly, transformed his body, and immersed himself in the life of Muhammad Ali. The performance earned him an Oscar nomination but left him exhausted, questioning if he'd ever escape Ali's shadow. Then came The Pursuit of Happyness, 2006. Playing Chris Gardner, a father fighting to survive poverty, wasn't just acting. It was Will confronting his own vow from childhood. His kids would never endure what he had endured. The tears on screen weren't scripted. They were memory. Another Oscar nomination followed, but more importantly, the role gave him a measure of healing, yet regret still shadowed him. He passed on Neo in The Matrix, a decision that haunted him. He turned down Django Unchained, wary of its brutality, only to see it succeed without him. "I've made bad choices," he admitted. "Sometimes I wonder what might have been." Redemption came with King Richard, 2021. As Richard Williams, father to Venus and Serena, Will portrayed a complicated man, flawed, protective, unrelenting. It was a mirror of his own struggles as a father. In 2022, when he won the Academy Award for Best Actor, it felt like the peak of his career, a lifetime of effort crowned in gold, and then, in seconds, it all shifted. On March 27, 2022, a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith ignited anger. Will walked to the stage and struck Chris Rock. The sound reverberated through the theater. Silence fell. What should have been his crowning moment became his deepest wound. The Academy banned him for 10 years. He resigned from the Academy. Projects halted. Decades of goodwill dimmed in an instant. He later called it a scar for life, but he did not hide. He spoke openly, apologizing repeatedly. "I was wrong. I hurt people, and I regret it deeply." The swagger was gone, replaced by humility. The lesson was harsh, but clear. Mastery of self outweighs any crown. Will's personal life mirrored his struggles. In 1992, he married Sherry Zampino. Their son, Trey, was born the same year. But the marriage cracked under the strain of fame and ended in 1995. The divorce felt like his deepest failure. The hardest part was losing closeness with Trey, a wound that took years of patient rebuilding. In 1997, he married Jada Pinkett Smith. Their family grew with Jaden in 1998 and Willow in 2000. For a time, their home was filled with laughter. But strong personalities and public scrutiny created friction. Rumors of an open marriage spread. In 2020, Jada spoke of an entanglement during a separation. Later, the world learned that since 2016 they had lived apart, married but not together. Will called it a brutal, beautiful journey. Through it all, he continued to call Jada his life partner. Their love, complicated and imperfect, endured through storms that would have broken many. In 2016, Will's father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The man who was both foundation and wound now had only months. Will sat with him seeking forgiveness. When his father died, grief arrived with a gift, the freedom to carry forward strength and let go of anger. In 2019, doctors discovered a precancerous polyp during a routine colonoscopy. It was removed, but the fear lingered. His father's death was still fresh. Mortality was no longer abstract. Health, he realized, wasn't about appearance. It was about survival. In 2021, He launched Best Shape of My Life on YouTube. What started as a fitness journey became an emotional unmasking. He spoke about frustrations, doubts, even dark thoughts. That same year, he published his memoir, Will, Peeling Back the Armor of Fame. Childhood terror, broken marriages, regrets, all laid bare. Writing became therapy, a way to bleed out poison from old scars. Now, at 56, Will Smith lives more quietly. His 150-acre Calabasas estate is less a mansion than a sanctuary, complete with a lake, a recording studio, a basketball court, and a theater. He has built other homes over the years, Hidden Hills, Pennsylvania, Hawaii. But Calabasas is his refuge. His fortune is estimated at $350–400 million with real estate and Westbrook Inc. fueling his empire. But money is not the measure anymore. Health, balance, and family are. He trains, eats with discipline, and tells his fans, routine screenings save lives. Family remains imperfect but enduring. In 2025, despite years of separation, the Smith family gathered to celebrate Jada's birthday, proof that love sometimes survives in presence, not perfection. Jaden is charting his own path in fashion. Willow creates daring music. Trey has become a steady presence, reconciled with the father who once feared losing him. Professionally, Will has not stopped. Emancipation 2022 was released into a wary industry. 2 years later, Bad Boys 4 roared to $400 million worldwide, reminding everyone of his timeless charisma. By 2025, he released his first album in 20 years, based on a true story. One track, Beautiful Scars, captured the essence of his journey. Wounds turned into testimony. Projects like I Am Legend 2 and Pole to Pole remain in development. Not all will see the light, but he keeps creating, keeps moving. If the 1990s crowned him box office king and the 2000s proved his dramatic depth, then this decade has taught the hardest lesson: how to rise after stumbling before the world, and how to do so while aging and facing mortality. At 56, Will Smith is not simply a superstar. He is a man who has known triumph and disgrace, strength and frailty, regret and renewal. The Fresh Prince is no longer fresh, nor a prince. He is something rarer, a man who has learned that greatness is not defined by perfection, but by the courage to live with scars and let them teach us how to endure.